John, is sexual harassment policies, is that on the upswing?
I would say that the two most frequently purchased or reviewed coverages now are what we call employment practice liability, which covers harassment, defamation, wrongful termination, illegal hiring practices, and the second would be cyber liability. So yes, there is an increase in reviewing and purchasing.
And is there really protection from that? And you know, that's a whole interesting topic too, because you know, with Harvey Weinstein, there's been a lot of discussion that too many people were protecting him.
Yeah. So Jeffrey, you're on the air. Tell me your issues. No. So the biggest thing we see is that people buy a policy or have an endorsement on their existing policy and it's not broad enough. So like any insurance contract, on a management liability side, directors and officers employment liability, you really got to spell out what your exposures are, what the definitions of the contract are, what the definitions to defend you and to make payments on your behalf. So, for example, if I'm a consultant in a management field...
why are you picking on me again?
Well, because you're across the table.
Okay.
So, in all seriousness, if I'm a consultant, I collaborate with other professionals, I better make sure that my employment practice liability policy has third-party liability protection, because if you bring in another professional to collaborate with you and they pick on one of your staff, Alex or Chris, whoever the target of the day is, you want to make sure that you're properly protected for what they have to say.
Right.
So there's those kinds of little, and then you get into retentions. You know, I recently saw a client who had a $20,000 retention, meaning deductible. Very small client, not a lot of capital. So if they get sued, they got to come up with the first $20,000. It's going to be difficult.
And for a small business, that could put you out of business.
That could definitely hurt their operation immensely and make them insolvent. The other thing I would say is when you, a lot of people say, well, I have it. It's automatically on my business owner's policy. So the business owner's policy in this regard could be a demise, because what it does is, yeah, there's some language on there that they'll cover stuff, but it's not as broad enough, and it's a sublimit. It's a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 limit, and you and I both know, because we work around the legal field a lot, that's not even a deposit on the retainer.
I'm going to ask you, I'm going to flip the coin. All these 5, and there's more than 5, who've been accused are all males. Have you had any female entrepreneurs call you about insurance policies?
No, but I've seen businesses where in the past, and obviously we can't give names specifically, but I've seen businesses where a female has caused a harassment issue by, she finds an attractive young male or whatever. It does happen, I'm sure. I think the media certainly plays to the wealthy, affluent male. And I think, it's...
I once had a female boss. I don't say she sexually harassed me, but she harassed me.
Was it deserved, though, Jeff?
Yeah, she probably would say he was stupid.
and all kidding
it's
aside...
much earlier in my career, although people might say I'm still stupid.
And employment practice doesn't revolve just around sexual harassment. There's age discrimination, which is 40 with MCAD. Right. It's racial, religious.
Right.
You can't do religious.
That I've had.
There's a whole host of other beyond the sexual harassment, but certainly the media plays to the sexual harassment.
Early in my career, I once had an executive assistant. We used to work in secretarial pools like Mad Men, and after she found out that I was of Jewish ancestry, my projects were always in the bottom of the basket. I never got my work done.
So that would be, a case of creating what we call a hostile environment. So it's anything that can create a hostile environment, age, religion, sexual orientation, your looks, weight's another discriminatory issue. You can't make jokes around.
I just had somebody ask me during an interviewing process, someone I was working with, can we ask them during the interview process to lose 25 pounds? I was like, no, you can't do that.
That's not a good door opener.
No, but you know what? People don't know what they can and can't do. They think because they think it, they can say it, or because they're in a position of power.
So we've had people on the past on the show, David Gabor of Wagner, Megan Taylor of the Taylor
David
HR
Gabor,
Group.
great guy.
And those people can create audits for firms. So beyond selling them insurance, as important as selling the insurance is to have policies and procedures in place that if you do have an event, an investigation occurs, and you take the proper steps to remediate the situation. So yes, we can sell you insurance, but do you have processes, policies, and procedures? Do you conduct audits? All of those things play into the
Personnel
total picture.
manual, set of rules, social conduct.
Yeah, social media.
Right.
That's another issue now where
Right.
people post bad pictures of co-employees without permission.
And pictures on their Facebook. I know HR departments now are reviewing Facebook.
Absolutely. And the exposure for an entrepreneur or business owner related to any of these issues, I mean, you just don't know the flavor of the day of what's going to tick somebody off. So if you're practical, that could be another. Drinking. Holiday parties are coming.
Yeah.
So there's another issue where
I used to go to holiday parties, corporate holiday parties, that people used to bring out illegal drugs earlier in my career in Canada. And I was like, hey, guys, not here. And they were like, why not? It's a party.
And obviously, when people are under the influence of different drugs, chemicals, alcohol, they conduct themselves differently. Creates exposure for the company. If the company doesn't have a policy around that and a harassment policy, it's an open door.
I always tell staff my whole career, I always tell clients, if it's a business event, it's not a social event, and you really prefer not to be drinking, and your policy should be no drinking in front of a business event, because you're going to say and do something that you're going to regret afterward.
And the millennials in a social environment in business today is much different than it was 30 years ago. They, you know, there's a life balance, work-life balance, and they like to enjoy.
But there's also a lot more dating going on within the business environment now. We find that, you know, a lot of surveys show that there's a lot more romances started, and, you know, real serious romances.
And probably ended.
Yeah, due to the work site. And again, it's a difficult road, correct?
Yeah, and as a risk manager, you know, you try to help your client find a balance of a fun culture where people can joke a little and can have fun and grow and personally grow and professionally, but you also got to counterbalance it with the right policies, procedures, and insurance so that if something does occur outside the norm that you're protected and you can stay in business.
Very good. And that can include even humor. Humor can go to, because I'm a joker. And I tease.
Really?
Yeah. So that can go too far, right? So I would say, like, I hire staff that I know that no one would ever want to date. That's probably inappropriate, too.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to say that with them in the room, Jeff.
Right, like I just did. No, but that's an example. You got to be careful with humor, too. And I did.
Humor.
You know, my father used to say things. He was a food distributor, and he would walk into the buying room, and buyers would be there, and salespeople would be there, and the things he would say that were considered to be humor in the 1960s, 1970s, you would not get away with today.
And from our perspective of looking at what you're describing, we have other concerns now of when it's appropriate to text someone.
Texting, yes.
Text, you know, you text someone at 4 in the morning because you're thinking of them. Does that institute, well, emails, pictures that you send, graphic pictures. Everybody's got Snapchat and Instagram. And if you're directing it to a single party, that could be considered a form of, you know, outside of work, creating a hostile environment. And not only that, you have to balance. So we represent, like you do, Jeff, many different industries. Is a bar in the city much different than a law firm on, you know, the waterfront in Boston, different than a medical practice? So you got to balance those environments.
Yes, but no. And I know a lot of those restaurateurs, at the end of the day, they all convene in the kitchen, they're drinking, they're doing other things, and you would not find that in a legal practice or a medical practice.
Right. So you have to balance that.
And there's liability with that, too. Then the staff goes home, and if they have an accident, the liability is with the owner, correct?
And that's true. And so with the holiday parties, this is a good time to just quickly broach. We talked a little bit about the additional exposure. If you're going to have a holiday party and you're going to serve liquor, make sure you have either host liquor or liquor liability so that if there's a bodily injury claim or property damage, you're covered. And all of these things are things that you can easily review and bring forward and try to do the right thing for your company to help remain solvent and profitable.
Well, John, it's like everything else. The laws, our morals, our standards are changing every month now. And now it's changing every day. And your main point is you need to have the right coverage to protect yourself.
And not only the right coverage, the right people around you, coaches, lawyers, consultants, to make sure you have policies, procedures, cultural checks, communication.
And you still want to have fun on the work site.
Absolutely.
The key is to keep a culture that's uplifting and fun and engaging.
Positive.
And community-minded, but people need to be safe.
Right. That is correct.
All very important stuff. I appreciate you bringing it in, and it's it's a relevant topic because, as I said before, these names are in the news. Every day there's a new name.
And I'm sure we're going to hear more.
Oh, there's a lot more. And again, what's interesting so far, there's no female names on the list.
Correct.
And, I'm sure there's going to be some talk about that eventually. Why are we seeing always male names and not female names? I think some of it is fear, but I think some of it is that the female entrepreneurs on average, they have a different standard for how they like to run their companies.
And that could be accurate as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of factors in play, but it'll be an interesting social psychology study for all of us. John, somebody wants to get hold of you and your new office that's up and coming. Where do they find you?
Okay, www.jedinsurance.com or at 508-543-1067 or visit our physical sites at 30 Mechanic Street, Foxborough, Mass. Or effective January 2nd, you can also go to 1244 Broadway in Raynham, Massachusetts.